time to tease out this topic. We'll be talking about philanthropists at work, promoting regional integration in Africa. And my panelists are Ambassador Vincent Karega, who's the Ambassador of Rwanda to South Africa. Welcome, Ambassador. Mr. Tony Cole, who's the co-founder and executive director of the Sahara Group. And Dr. Acha Leke, who's a senior partner at McKinsey & Company. Thank you all so very much for joining me on this panel. Really looking forward to understanding first and foremost the link between philanthropy and regional integration. And I'm sure that you all have very valuable input to contribute to this topic. And I think the way that we'll start this panel is just by, I'd like to start with you, Ambassador, and then go forward. But can we talk about why regional integration is important in the first place?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody here. Good morning, Africa. Good morning. Good morning, the world. Regional integration, global integration, globalization are very important concepts. They are key, but their implementation is the most important. When markets are integrated, with infrastructure integrated, when movement of people and goods, movement of skills, knowledge are also workable, then we talk of reduction or elimination of poverty, we talk of harmonized good governance, we talk of harmonized integrated management of natural resources, balanced trade, and definitely a better world. So in the context of Africa, Africa is busy working on a full-fledged integration. As you know, Africa has got Vision 2063, a vision in which peace and security will prevail, good governance, and definitely the whole continent through the current signed CFTA or Common Free Trade Area will be effective, and goods and services and capital and people will be moving freely, and Africa will present itself as a stronghold of industrialization, innovation, and a reliable trading partner, unlike where it is today. So philanthropy, aid, loans, everything, if effectively utilized, can make an impact in this journey of transforming the lives of the poor, the way of doing business by governments and states, and also the way of interacting with each other, and the reducing of non-tariff barriers, and as well as the physical or the infrastructure barrier. Thank you.
Well, I would say that regional integration, as far as Africa is concerned, it's almost like going back to the days. Almost everything you have in life kind of starts from one core place. Then you go through this entire journey trying to discover yourself. And at the end of the day, either in this life or in the next life, you come back to where you started off from. And one of the things about Africa, long before we had all the borders that were imposed on us and all of that, was that you actually had the free movement. You have people moving between tribes, between places. Africa was a continent of trade, a place where people moved around freely. And so integration back then wasn't a problem because it wasn't considered as an issue. You got up, you had something, you moved. You went to discover other places, people settled in different places, and all of that. And then the borders came, and all of a sudden we found that families were divided, between countries. You now found people on the other side of the fence, and you knew you were the same, yet there was a border that had just come in and divided you by language, so you spoke the same local dialect, but at the national level, you found that some people were now speaking English and others speaking French, but yet they were the same people. And so all that confusion now began to come in. And what we're seeing now, and why this is so important, is that you're going back to, you're trying to find again, how do you reconnect between people who once were brothers and sisters but are now divided? And that division is a physical division but not a mental division, and now you have to come back into that space. And so that's what this is all about. So I feel that we're on this journey of rediscovery, this journey of bringing ourselves back to the core, this journey of bringing ourselves back to the place where we're comfortable with each other. And so you find today that if I traveled and I went to South Africa, I went to Kenya, I went to Senegal, or anywhere I go, I don't feel different, even though I know I'm Nigerian. And once we sit down, whether it's in the food, it's in the culture, and all of that, there are too many similarities, too many things bring us together than divide us. And yet, we find that, and I'm sure Charlie is going to talk a bit about that, you then find that it's more difficult for me with a Nigerian passport to travel within Africa than if I have a US passport or a French passport or thereabouts. And those are the kind of things that the integration that we're talking about begins to bring.
But I fully agree with what Ambassador Antonio said. As a consultant, let me add some facts to the discussion, right? So, we talk about Africa and we're excited about it. We talk about a $2 trillion economy, we talk about 1.2 billion people. But the reality is it's 54 countries, and many of them are small, right? So it's very different if you're in China or in India, that has a billion plus people as well, and doing business there, and then in Africa when you're trying to do business across 54 countries. So I think that's the one challenge we have. The second is it then limits our intra-Africa trade. When we talk about intra-Africa trade, you get about 15%. Other regions are in the 30, 40, 50. Some regions are actually in 60%, right? So we actually don't trade with each other. Which then leads us, we thought there's a big issue about unemployment, and that's part of the problems because we actually don't create the goods that we needed across the continent. Today we import a third of all the food and beverage we produce. We consume, right? We import about a third from outside of Africa. Other regions import 5 to 10%. So it's very important for us to really continue to manufacture a lot more of what we need. Fred is going to be here tomorrow. He's going to talk about, I'm sure, his 6,000 days, right? In 6,000 days, we will have the largest working age population in the world, right? And the question then is, how do you make sure that we have jobs for these people, right? If not, it's going to be a big issue. So again, without regional integration, it will be very hard to create jobs for all these people. What that then leads to is that that's the link that I think we typically miss, is actually it limits the scale of companies, right? If you think today of the number of billion-dollar companies we have. Actually, let me ask you guys this question. I always ask this question, by the way. And if you read the report, don't answer, but how many companies do you think in Africa make $1 billion or more of revenue? Whether it's a state-owned enterprise, whether it's a multinational, whether it's a local African company. How many companies make $1 billion or more of revenue in Africa today? Anybody? I hear 200. I hear 5. All right, so the typical answer is between 50 to 150, right? The person said 200 actually ventured. The answer is 400, right? There are 400 companies that make $1 billion or more revenue. But that's not enough. If you look at the size of Africa and compare the size of the continent to other regions, we have 2/3 fewer companies, we have 1/3 fewer companies than we should have. And our large companies are on average much smaller than large companies in other regions, right? And large companies are important because if you look at tax revenues, and that's what our governments use to fund our development. In every country, there are millions of taxpayers, but the top 100 companies contribute 50 to 70% of tax revenues in any country. Right? So it's important to have big companies. It's important because they also then professionalize the supply chain. They help the smaller companies that feed into them. Right? And because we're fragmented, we then don't have these big companies. We then don't have the revenues to fund our development. We then have the issue Tony talked about around travel, right? When we started this work 5 years ago, on average, an African needed visas for 60% of African countries, but a European at the time needed visas for 55% of countries, and an American for 42%, to give you a sense. And there were only 5 African countries that allowed any African to travel freely and visit. Either you get a visa on arrival or you just didn't need a visa. Now today we're at 20 countries, right? So we're making good progress, but again, there's a big problem around with my Cameroonian passport, how I can to me is why I actually think regional integration is critical, but it's not at the high level, political level. It's at the everyday interaction that we help transform our continent. And I always argue that nobody's going to do it for us. We have to do it ourselves.
What's happening in the global landscape is influencing this need to integrate regionally on the continent. But I also want to go back to one of the things that you said, Ambassador, which is how do we define, I think we need to define for ourselves the difference between philanthropy, aid, and charity.
Sure. Yeah, without getting out of integration, which is very important for the regional integration, there are so many things to be done and to be fixed. The laws, the way we govern, the way we manage borders, the way we perceive each other, and the way we trade and what we trade in, and the level of value and competitiveness of what we are trading in. If I may comment, for example, on the big things that we export before even doing more, let's say minerals, platinum, copper, and so on, and agricultural products like coffee, cocoa, and so on. Most of them have a value addition outside of Africa. And that's where the jobs and the value are made while we face unemployment. Now philanthropy can play a role. In Africa we talk of, in many places, more than 40% below the poverty line. These are people, even if they may wish to work or to be self-employed, they don't have collateral to borrow money to do or to implement their dream. And when they have collateral, they don't have, in most cases, the right education or information into what the market is asking for. So philanthropy and aid, if they have to be effective and help the people to learn how to fish and not to give them fish, I think they can leverage the muscle of these people who are not in the immediate loop of those who can trade, those who are competitive, and make them competitive. Even these so-called strong economies, if you look at their nature, I don't think they are made of multinationals. They are made of professionalized SMMEs. Through SMMEs, you create more jobs, more specialization, and definitely room for innovation. Through multinationals, nothing against, but they are not the key and the solution that is all-inclusive, because they come with monopolies, they come with ganging, they come with defining the terms, and they, in the end, become exclusive to the smaller people. Yet the majority of the people in Africa belong to the category of smaller or beginners or people at embryonic level. So it is in that context that I see philanthropic or compassion money or aid money coming into it. And also the definition of philanthropy. In Africa or in poor countries, when we talk of philanthropy, the first perception is that people from the West will come with compassion and sign checks for us. But we forget that those in the middle class within our own community, through solidarity mechanism, can support those within our own community by doing something. If we do a dollar campaign from people who can afford a dollar, then we can create a fund that could be a women fund for the women of a township or of a village. If we do any other activities that is philanthropic, it can contribute to the scholarship of our brilliant children coming from families that cannot afford to pay for their education. So many ways that can be happening within before even thinking of outside philanthropists. We also have rich people. There may be 5% or 10% in our society. It's important that they build their wealth while contributing to the foundation of transformation using their wealth as well. And it is in that regard, or how I also perceive philanthropy to play a key role in transforming the Africa agenda, the country's agenda, and the capabilities to trade competitively as Africans as an integrated, stronger market.
Thank you, Ambassador. Tony, going back to regional integration itself, how do we pool the resources that are available through philanthropy and philanthropists to fund some of the government services that we need to make this happen, to perhaps even influence policy where it's needed?
That's a great question. First of all, in my experience, one of the things I've found, first of all, is that most of our governments do not, I don't know if understand is the right word, probably appreciate. They don't appreciate the role that philanthropy plays, real philanthropy plays in the development of the nation, whether it's education or anything. Recently I was in Spain and speaking to a group of students regarding the SDGs, and we were talking about the intervention that we have to make as a company across board in education, water, roads, all sorts of things, environmental, teaching. And one of the young students came to me and she had this confused look on her face. And she says, but where is the government in all of this? Why do you have to do all of these things? You know, they could not reconcile the fact that as an African company working in Africa, you're taking on more and more the role that governments should play. And that's now going beyond philanthropy. You're actually doing a lot more in infrastructure, social projects, all sorts of things that ideally taxpayer money should go into to do. So you're building schools, renovating schools, paying for classrooms, paying for teachers, teaching teachers, putting teachers in school, putting computers, doing all sorts of things. And naturally, that all falls into what you would call in this room philanthropic acts. But the government captures it in a zero-line item. It's not captured anywhere. You don't get a tax break for it. Nobody recognizes it. It goes into your cost as part of the cost of your doing business. It comes out of your profit that you have to use to do all of those things, and no one cares about it. Now, it's not even added at the end of the day into any government database as part of activities that make a social impact in the country. So it's not captured. Now you do have to capture that data as well. You have to find a way of capturing the data, translating that data into something that shows that the country is achieving a sort of goal. And all of this makes it extremely difficult for philanthropists to differentiate and show the impact that they're making in countries. We have to address all of that. There are ways we're doing it now with the SDG, working with the United Nations and coming together with the private sector advisory group, so going into your issue of advocacy, where we found out that it's important for private sector companies, if we're going to scale, to come together and stop doing the same thing. So someone in the earlier panel talked about the egos, where you sit down and you want to do a school and 10 other people will do the same school, do the same building, and all of that, and nothing has been done. But can you come together and scale your activity by looking at the sector and deciding where in that sector you can put all of this impact together? But more than that, how do you go back and advocate with the government that this is important? And in the United Nations, you have something called the National Voluntary Reporting. So for the SDGs, how do you capture what the private sector is doing with what the government is doing and put it together as a document that you can show that this is what the country has achieved? And that's what we're now working with the government of Nigeria to achieve, so that everything the private sector does can be captured by the government. And at the end of the day, maybe recognized in one way or another. Today is not recognized.
I suppose also, how do you avoid becoming a replacement for the government?
I don't know. So if you're going to get what's in our business you would call a social license to operate, right? You're finding more and more that for you to have any social license to operate within the sphere that I operate, the only way that you can do that is that you have to show a very, very physical footprint in the areas that you're working, right, that allows the communities or neighbors and all that to do what you do. But you're finding that the more you go into that, the less the government does. It's as if as soon as you come in and you're doing that, the government just says, you know what, someone is doing that, thank you very much, and then go somewhere else. But if you don't do it, then you're not allowed to operate. So it's a quagmire for us. You do it, you have to do a lot more. You don't do it, then you can't operate. And so, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. We don't have a choice, so we have to keep doing it, but it becomes more and more onerous, a lot of activity, a lot of cost, but it's something that you still need to do.
Yeah, it sounds like we need mechanisms to be able to still keep the governments accountable for what they're supposed to do.
Maybe.
Which in most of our countries we don't have at the moment. And then speaking of accountability, Acha, I want to talk a little bit. Sure, please go ahead.
It is true, when a government is not clear about the way it's leading a country, that it fears every other person coming in the loop. But government that understand that development is not a business of the state alone, that the state is a regulator, a facilitator of actors. What you want happens. I'll give the example of my country, Rwanda. Every single district has got what we call a district development plan that is linked to the national vision. And in that there's a forum called GDF, Joint Development Forum. In that forum, the private sector, the civil society, the philanthropists, whoever has got an idea or a plan or a budget to contribute to that plan is part of it, and it is all recorded and registered, and roles assigned, and they come with a common joint monitoring system. Also philanthropy, like NGOs, get registered and get a license to operate through what we call the Rwanda Governance Board. They also get monitored if they do, not what we told them to do, but what they agreed to do, but that is supposed to be in line with the vision of the country. Because we have a vision that we should not give things for free for consumption, but we can help the poor to learn how to do it, to borrow, but at probably a subsidized rate, rather than just to have and consume. And also have them be obliged to achieve results for themselves and in the end for the community that they live in. So if somebody comes with just compassion and give and create what we call the dependence syndrome, then it will be seen as being out of order within the vision. But they have a platform in which they operate accordingly to the vision. And I believe in most African countries, as we build Africa together, exchange on best practices, either in governance, in transparency, in community development, will be taking place. There are governments that are very good at regulating private sector, but that is solid and bold, and governments that are good at community development, and those that are trying both approaches, but together we need to kind of have approaches that deal with issues of all citizens, no matter where they belong in terms of economy or education or location and so on. Thank you.
If I may forget your other question, because I truly agree with that. I think part of your question about philanthropists and charity and aid, I think what's important is to make sure that whatever the philanthropists are supporting are aligned with what the country, the region is trying to do. So I'll give you an example where I think it worked extremely well in Nigeria, where we worked on polio eradication, right? So that was very much the government, it was a clear priority for the government, it was a clear priority for some of the philanthropists, the Gates Foundation, the Dangote Foundation, and others. It was a clear priority for the international community. And we all came together, and 5 years ago, the number of cases had increased to 122. 4 years later, with a lot of effort from all these parties, we were able to go through 2 years with no case at all. We had some cases last year. But that's where it was really aligned. I think part of the challenge, sometimes people have the pet project and that's what they want to work on, and that's what they're pushing, which is very different from what the government or region is trying to do, right? So I think aligning it more will be extremely helpful.
So can I put all of this together? At the end of the day, one of the things that I've found clearly is that the only way that we can make this work is by collaboration. Okay, and so that's an SDG number 17 goal, which is partnership and collaboration. And essentially what I've found out is that there's no one group that has the answer. The private sector on its own can't do it, The government cannot do it on their own, civil society cannot do it on their own. We need to sit down around the table, talk, agree, understand that every player, every actor there has a part to play. And each person may be putting a bit in one direction, but at the end of the day, if you have a very clear purpose as to where you're going, then it works. That's the only way I found it to work. And just as Archie said, when that has been the case, it's worked. We did the same in the eradication of guinea worm in Nigeria and Ghana, where we came in, we worked with the Ministry of Health, we worked with the Carter Foundation, and Sahara, we put in money, we put in boreholes, and within 5 years, guinea worm was eradicated in Nigeria, same in Ghana. I've seen it work, so it works. But more often than not, what you find is that everybody is very selfish about what they want to do, and everyone is pulling in different directions. And so we see the good, we see the bad, and we know that if we're going to make this work, and the only way it can work is what actually Ambassador just said. We have to come together, sit down and collaborate. There's no bad actor in this. It's not the private sector, it's not the government, it's not civil society, no bad actor as long as we're collaborating. We become terrible actors when each one of us is just looking for our own good.
I think that's a great way to segue into questions. But before we go there, I don't think we can close this discussion without talking about the role of the AU as a multilateral body. And I'd like to understand, Ajahn, I know you've been involved in the AU reforms. I just want to understand how the AU can go about using philanthropic resources to push its agenda of reform, specifically when it comes to funding itself, but also funding free trade, which I know is an important item on its agenda.
Yeah, and I think it's a good question. You know, the AU needs all the support that it can get. And we've been going through this process of reform for almost a year and a half, 2 years now. And in particular, the finances, and it's an interesting example where, you know, the AU's budget is about $400 million a year, more than half of which is funded by donors. The program budget, 97% of the program budget is funded by donors as well, right? So, you know, we stepped back and said, you know, if we're going to drive our own development, we need to be able to fund it. Because what happens is, to what Tony was saying, the donors have the specific projects, right? And so they want to, you know, eradicate tsetse flies, and so that's what they'll put the money in and create a whole agency for that, and they want to do something else. And so we said, look, let's try to make sure that we can actually fund, as Africa, we need to fund our own development. And so the recommendation, which was approved by the president, is to put a levy of 0.2% on import of selected items. And it's interesting, so a number of countries are actually going through the process of actually putting that in place in terms of how they fund the AU and how they pay for the contributions. And some have actually started contributing in that model. But a number of countries, and a lot of countries outside of Africa, right, are fighting it, right? And so again, that's part of the role I think people like philanthropists can play. I remember President Kagame likened it to say, look, you know what, imagine if, you know, you were my tenant and I was staying in your house and I was thinking I was a student and you were paying my rent because I couldn't afford rent. And so you pay my rent and then now I graduate and I have a job. And I decide, oh great, I'm going to pay my rent myself. And you say, no, let me still pay your rent for you, right? So why do you still want to pay my rent for me, right? When I can pay it myself? And that's the issue we're having, which is we want to fund it ourselves, and we can actually fund it through this mechanism. But a number of international partners do not want that to happen, right? And they have a vested interest in it not happening. And so there's a role, I think, for, you know, philanthropists to say, you know, there's a big advocacy role, I think, here to help people understand why it's important for us to fund ourselves. The other challenges around, you know, is it legal, is it not, is it binding mechanism, but that we can put that aside. But just, you know, helping make the case for why this is important for us as a continent, as an African, to really drive our own development and fund it, I think is important. So that's one role. The second, I think, is just on funding, right? Obviously, when I was invited here, I was like, I think of philanthropists as people who have money to give. And a lot of problems that need money, right? So there must be a role for philanthropists in regional integration. And I think finding projects, again, that are aligned with, you know, your vision, your strategy, your mission, but also aligned with what we're trying to accomplish on the regional integration front. So, you know, Tsitsi and Strive actually have funded some of the work of the AU committee, some of the work we've done on the AU committee. So finding those kinds of projects that are aligned with your what you're you're trying to accomplish from a philanthropic perspective that also help deliver regional integration. That's another way to do it. And the final thing I would say is just an influence, right? I think a lot of philanthropists here have a ton of influence. You know, some of our leaders across the country listen a lot more to you than they listen to other people. And so thinking about, you know, how do you want to influence them, because we don't have the free trade agreement, the number of countries that have not signed it. I think there's a role for philanthropists to actually try to convince these leaders. By the way, your country has not signed it. There's a way for philanthropists to, some philanthropists convince them not to sign it. We'll talk about that. But there's a role for philanthropists to play a role to influence one of our leaders to do the right thing.
Thank you. So I think we can open it up to questions. Mic around. 3-4 questions, and we'll answer them. It's time. The lady over there.
Hi. Hello. Okay. Hi, my name is Rose Thogonjiri. I'm coming from the Seagull Family Foundation. I have a question for Tony. I really gotten inspired by your talk about over here.
Sorry,
about what you're talking about collaboration, basically, and how you bring different stakeholders to the table to work towards one common goal. What I'd like to ask is basically, in your experience of the case study you just shared for the work you're doing in Nigeria and Ghana, what were the basic or like elements of how to build the structure for such a collaboration, and what was the glue that kept all the stakeholders on the table until the achievement of the goal?
My name is Adesua Ifedi. I work for Bridge. And again, I think this has been a very inspiring panel discussion. And for me, it brings to light in my head the real purpose of this forum in the first place. I think what we've heard today from the panelists has been talk about how investments can be made in Africa in a smart way. And it's something that I'll call smart money. I think we know that Africa is not a continent that has lacked investment or funding or grants or donor fund or donor work or money coming to the continent. What we've lacked is impact and results. And one of the two examples you've given today has been what has happened with polio and what has happened with in Nigeria as well. I think the key thing for me that I'm worried about is that this shouldn't just be another opportunity to give and get this feeling of satisfaction that I have given. I think this should be an opportunity to solve real issues. And I think that whatever it is that African Philanthropy Forum can do to bring the money to solve real issues for me, I think will be the critical success factor here. It's not about lack of funding. It's about, does this money go to solve real problems? How will this forum support philanthropists to collaborate and to address critical issues in such a way that we can actually, in 5 years' time, be talking about these same results, like the ones we talked about here today on polio?
Good morning, my name is Rutendo Renji and I'm with the African Youth Mentorship Network. My question is concerning the role of integration in migration. So part of the work that we do with the African Youth Mentorship Network is to encourage cultural experiences around the world. And I've done a lot of work with migration, and I want to ask a question concerning the age that is migrating to Europe. It's between the age of 18 and 35. And we've been talking a lot about business and how do we encourage states to sign, but how do we encourage youth to remain in the continent, and how do we encourage youth to be accepting of differences between countries and regions? So for example, you'll find that youth are more, and I'm speaking between the ages of 18 actually to 45, we're more prone to think that there's more integration or there's more that's happening outside the continent than inside the continent. So everybody is rushing to leave Africa. But how do philanthropists advocate for young people who are at the core of society in Africa itself to remain in Africa and invest in different parts? So I don't have to stay in Southern Africa just because I'm Southern African. And we know so little about each other inside the continent. How do we encourage integration, social cohesion, cultural transformation? Because borders are all artificial, we know that. And we're all very interconnected, but how do young people understand this? How does this kind of forum help to do that instead of just working with governments, member states, donors, and regional consultative processes? Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank the panelists for key insights. My name is Dr. Tolbert Mucheli. I'm with Highlight Foundation. Well, quite a lot of useful insights have just been shared, but my biggest concern is, yes, we are quite aware of the positive effects of integration, but my biggest question, which goes to Ambassador, is just to inquire at Africa level, are there any strides or big steps that are being taken to kind of promote the development of regional level policies which guides philanthropy? Not only looking at how philanthropy can be a big part in terms of the policy debates that are happening at Africa level, but are there any key steps that are happening now in order to have philanthropy take big space on policy debates up to such a point where we are confident, even as individual states, to say country A, country B have specific policies which guide philanthropy? Because I see quite a disconnect in terms of existing policies which guide socio-economic development and how that connects to the entire discourse on philanthropy. Thank you.
So I think the last question is a good one to include in your closing remarks. So I'll come to that one last. But I'd like to give Tony an opportunity to talk about the case study, Nigeria and Ghana.
Okay, thank you. First, excellent questions. Thank you everyone for those questions. And I'll move from that case study to something that we learned using that case study into something we're doing currently, and that should answer the question that you've asked. And so when the United Nations began on the SDG role, moving from the MDGs to the SDGs, one of the things that they found out that the MDGs failed, that's the Millennium Development Goals, had failed because it was a one-step approach. It was just the government going ahead and doing it, working to an extent with civil society as advisors and private sector as donors. But everything was being carried out by the government institutions, and it failed. And so when we moved into the SDGs, one of the things I was asked was that how can the private sector begin to be an active player in this? And the private sector takes a look at the SDGs and finds out almost immediately that the SDGs are good for business. It works. It's something that we can imbibe, and it's something that takes us away from CSR into being an active player in everything that the SDGs represent. For the first time, we could identify what we were doing as private sector in a number, in an icon, and say that we believe in women, or we believe in education, and so on and so forth. But that was one aspect of it. Then we now found out that in working with the government to achieve the SDGs, right, that there was a problem of communication. We spoke different languages. There was a problem with speed. We work at different speeds. There was a problem with trust. They don't trust each other. The private sector does not trust the multilateral agencies. Civil society does not trust private sector. And so we found that all of this became a huge problem. And then the task that we were given as private sector, so I was still at the advisory board at the United Nations, to work on how do we bring all of this together. And so when we sat down and began to look at this entire perspective, or all the conundrum that we were seeing there, it became clear that if we were going to make this work at all, everybody had to leave their egos outside and begin to look at what the ultimate goal is. So if the ultimate goal is that you need to meet the SDGs at this level, how do we go about doing that? It became very clear to me, right, that the SDGs are going to fail in 2030 completely if Africa does not get it right. So if Africa doesn't make it, it's not going to work. And that brought it home. If Africa is going to make it, what do we need? Nigeria has to make it. If Nigeria doesn't make it, Africa is not going to do it. Those kind of things. So we could break it down into very, very simple terms. And then I looked inwards in Nigeria and said, if we're going to make it work in Nigeria, how do we go about this? I know how my people think. We know that we have all the ego issues and all of that. So what we did very simply put, was that everybody sitting within their realm of influence, don't change what you're doing. Continue to, I'm not going to ask you to change your way of thinking, what you're doing in terms of impact. But what I want you to do is bring that onto the table, and together we can make it bigger. And so if we make it bigger, everybody plays their part. And the government plays their part, we play our part, civil society plays their part, and we sit around the table to have a clear goal as to what we do. And so we sat down, and once you realized that you were addressing everybody around the table, felt that they had a key part to play in the final outcome, you saw that there was a different way that they began to think. And that was the clue, that you see what the final outcome is, and you know what role you are playing to make that final outcome work. If you can do that and you can make that clear, then you don't have a problem. But if one person feels that they're the ones doing all the work and another person is just riding on it to take the glory and all of that, then everything falls apart. And so that's what we were able to create. And slowly, it's been an experiment. It's hard. The first 2 years was just building trust, but we got there. And to answer the other two questions regarding smart money and migration, one of the things that I believe will address this, first of all, is the technology base that we can do. I believe that one of the things that we need to push in Africa today is what you call digital infrastructure. That's what I call digital infrastructure. In other words, how do we begin to connect the continent in terms of ICT, in terms of connectivity, when it comes to fiber optics? Because ICT, as we know, technology is the future and it's a way that you move. Now, if you build the base of technology, first of all, is energy. So power, how do you get power to work? If you can get power to work and then you put on that fiber optics that you can connect, almost immediately you begin to address the migration problem. What have we seen again back in Nigeria working with young people? We found out that the ages between 18 and 25, between 18 and 35, right, is usually the sweet spot where you find restlessness, unemployment. They're the ones who are easily recruited for pipeline vitalization, militancy, whatever you want to do. They're the ones who go into the army, first of all, and they're also the ones who go as rebels or whatever. So it's a restless group of people. They're also the ones who are migrating. And you find that these are also the same demography that are most active when you give them social media, when you give them technology, and you give them things to do. So if we can put digital infrastructure in place, then all of a sudden you find out that they can sit wherever they are, connect with an international world ecosystem, and begin to provide solutions and make a revenue where they are. They don't need to move. And we found out that whenever we've done this, it's addressed the problem. And so I did a tour with the Minister of Communication of Nigeria to Rwanda, to Kenya, and Nigeria to bring them together, creating a network of Nigerians, Rwandans, and Kenyans who are providing service with each other. Almost immediately, they began to learn about culture. They didn't have to leave Rwanda or leave Nigeria or leave Uganda, or leave Kenya to begin to understand about themselves. And what was this about? It was just connecting over social media, connecting over a platform that each one of them could provide services for the other. You have a large market in Nigeria, you have a digital space in Kenya, you have Rwanda that is going a lot into innovation, and also you find that you have created an ecosystem where people don't have to leave their countries, but they get to know a lot more about other countries. And once people are useful in a place, once they feel that they are contributing positively to the development of the continent, then there's no need for them to begin to migrate to Europe and America. Lastly, we also found out that the minute they stayed, because the internet is global, you found out that you could begin to, and I know people who are doing this, they're providing services for companies in America, companies in Asia, and they're staying in Africa. They don't have to move, and they're earning foreign exchange doing that, just by providing services that are ICT based. Now, that's what you need to push. But the underlying fact is that if you do not have the digital infrastructure to allow them to do this, then they will move.
I think that there's a little bit of a disconnect in the narrative around whether we're talking about a restless generation or a hungry generation. So the whole issue of ICT, and I completely understand going with this, but are we being too needs-based in this conversation? Because we're talking about people who are not necessarily moving because they don't have access to social media, but perhaps because they don't have food, shelter, security, access to education, etc., etc. So perhaps you could, in that framework, you could also talk about how philanthropy can then contribute to that.
I can address that very quickly. One of the things that we've also seen is that when we talk about hunger and food in Africa, one of the things that we list is that Africa is not really hungry. Sometimes it's the information that we have and how to move your source from where you're producing to where it's needed, and it's just the information to move. So we looked at Africa, we looked at Nigeria again in the agricultural space, and everybody will know a lot more about this than I do. But you find that you have post-harvest waste at the door of the farm, going up to 60%, right, with tomatoes and vegetables. Waste. It's not a hungry country. But at the same time, you find people who are hungry within that same country. Why? Because you can't get tomatoes from one place to another. And sometimes what you need at the end of the day is just the information that the price is better and that there is a market 200 kilometers away. And it's information. So, is it just about needs that they need to feed? No. Sometimes it's information that they need that makes it relevant for them to know that in this season it's better for you to plant tomatoes, or maybe in the next season it's better for you to plant soya, or that there is a better margin in a particular type of crop that you are using within your area. So it's all of those things. So you find people who, because they see so much waste in their harvest, lose the interest to continue to farm because they remain in poverty because there's so much waste. And so what you then see is that they get up, and now that's where you now get into your question, that it's no longer, at this point, they can now not afford anything else, and so they get up and now there's an economic migration, or there's a migration that is there, that is being pushed into going to find a better life elsewhere. First, in another town, but then you find out that when you get there, it's overpopulated, and then in another country. And then you get there, it's another problem. But at the end of the day, I think information plays a huge role. Now, how do we get the information out? Today, you get a lot of that information through SMS. But you find that human beings learn. There's something that we do. We're learning people. So the first aspect of it is you start learning by text messages. But soon, text messages are not enough. You want to begin to learn on the next level, and then the infrastructure is not enough to carry it. And then you stop the growth again.
If I may, Johnny, because I agree with you, but I think there's a big economic migration issue, right, which is beyond learning. Is people, basically don't have jobs, right? They have nothing to do, and there's a promise of something better somewhere else, and at a risk of losing your life potentially, but it's worth taking that risk to go somewhere else, right? And so if you ask me, I think a lot of the answer has to be, we need to, the answer is an economic issue, right? We need to help create jobs for these people, help empower them for them to create jobs for themselves and become entrepreneurs, right? So where I think the role of philanthropists is not really about advocacy around, it's better to stay here than go somewhere else, but it's more around how do I support the government in creating helping people create meaningful jobs, help people learn to be entrepreneurs, how to actually support entrepreneurs, right, to create jobs for themselves and employ others. That, I think, is a big role for philanthropists to play.
Thank you. So can we go back to the regional policies ambassador and go back to the question that Dr. Toby asked, which is what kind of regional level policies do we need to guide the kind of philanthropy that can address real problems such as migration?
Thank you very much. I don't see philanthropy singled out with specific policies on philanthropy, but I take it in a comprehensive policy of partnerships like stated in the SDGs, whereby all actors, either they are philanthropic or they are lenders, they are capacity builders, everyone who makes sense into what we are looking for, an integrated development, that get a platform, that get easy way of registration and operation in countries. And that touches governance. Good governance means making life easier for different actors in development and for the people themselves to find ways and solutions to be beneficiary of good education, good lending policy, macroeconomic stability, pro-poor policies, and so on. So it is when all of this is lacking that we get consequences like insecurity, disorganized immigration, and so on. If I may also chip in on the immigration issue, when you look at those people who are going, definitely they are running from problems. But where they go, they also don't find solutions. Probably out of 10 who go to feel good, others still miss home. And most of them go on wrong information. And in the end, they kind of regret. The fact that free movement of people globally and in Africa is still difficult. Also return them as hostages. I, for example, see my own communities of immigrants, illegal, unregistered immigrants who are here in South Africa. There are not too many, thank Lord, and most return home. But when I ask a question, they say, why don't you go home? Because I see you are poor. You are in Johannesburg, yes, but you are poor. We're in Cape Town. You see, well, when I came, my family contributed money. They thought I'm going to a place and then I will be better off. So I cannot return like this, without a car, without anything. My sisters are better off. They will laugh at me. And because if you have been illegal for a while, once you get out, you never come back. But if you look at cases of Africans who go to Canada and Europe, after 5 years they get nationality, the first thing they do is to go back home, even not on a permanent basis, but they start interacting with home. They start even preparing their retirement home. So the easier it becomes to move in and out, the better. And also, the most important, coming to what my colleagues say here, information is very important. Because people end up going in a place where there's no solution. And they've put in a lot, including risking their own lives, just to find there's no better life where they are going to. And the way our immigration as Africans is also portrayed media-wise, it is as if all Africans are packing to move out of Africa. Actually, most African immigrants have moved from one African country to another African country. I hope you know that. And also, we have more Western immigrants in the continent than we have African immigrants outside. Go check statistics. The world cannot be a prison. I can have a good country, prosperous country, but I'm a specialist in petrol, and my country has no petrol. Probably my best job will be in Gabon or Nigeria or Angola. And they can be a social worker. Probably their best job is in South Africa, yet they are from Algeria. So that movement, you cannot really block it and say everybody must be in their country. People in the world should move freely. It's the world created by God. But they should move according to rules and regulations, and they should move intelligently so that their move make them better. Then definitely they are staying home. But there are so many opportunities in Africa, and I can tell this movement people are criticizing today of African going, in the next generation, it will be the other way around. Let us industrialize. Let us add value on our cocoa, on our coffee, then the baristas from Europe will come. Let's refine our petrol. Then those in need of petrol will not ask it from Shell, they will ask it from the Pan-African Petrol Company based in Lagos or Durban or wherever, and then they will come. And I hope we are not going to close the borders. We will have platforms and systems that take full benefit of the movement of people. So let's build a good world. Integration is working. I can give examples. In the ECOWAS, there are railways. ECOWAS is West Africa. Railways that are intra-countries, that were built with people putting money together. They've waived visas among themselves. And trade, people are trading, the volumes of trade are increasing, not to the satisfaction of what we want, because most of the countries are not yet industrialized, but many things are happening. More electrification is happening. More new roads, rails, airports, and ports are taking place in Africa. If I go to my region, East Africa, you don't roam with your phone in Kigali and Nairobi and Uganda. The rates remain flat no matter which telecommunication company, because we have agreed to waive the roaming. Then a product manufactured in Nairobi is sold in Rwanda without tax, same as Uganda and so on. And people move without passport, but with ID. Even a student card, you can move from Kigali to Uganda to Kenya, because that's how that region works. And once you register a company in Kigali, it is recognized in the registration system of the whole East African community. So I think it is working. It has contributed in job creations. It has contributed in even people learning from each other. It has contributed in cultural integration. If you're in Kigali in the evening and then you say, I want to eat Kenyan, it will not sound unusual. They will take you to a place where it may not be necessarily Kenyan, but Rwandan cooking.
Or Nigerian.
Or Nigerian. You had Nigerian in Kigali. That's one I haven't experienced yet. I'll go and see. And similar in Kampala, in Dar es Salaam, and so on. So things happen faster when you integrate. And I know in SADC as well, with SACU and so on, goods move easily. People work, live in Lesotho and work in South Africa and can go freely in the evening. And so many other things. But we need to do more. We need to be productive. Everybody wants to be industrialized, but there is an industry that can have one, let's say the biggest petrol industry, the biggest cocoa industry, the biggest coffee industry, the biggest tea industry, and the biggest food industry. And trade-wise, we all trade with Europe and the West, but we don't trade often with ourselves. And then they control that trade. I'll give you an example. When they don't want the oranges from Cape Town, they will say they have a dot. And then South Africa will worry and go negotiate to have a better deal. But if those oranges had markets in, let's say, Africa, how many countries want oranges?
Absolutely, and Ambassador, I think that's why conversations like these are really important, and the work that we're doing as a community, as Africans, is driving towards the exact change that you just painted. So thank you so much for that, Matt. I think we run out of time. It's now time for the next panel. But thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Tonya. Thank you, Acha, for this very constructive conversation.